That was in 2004 when I saw at Society for Neuroscience meeting some rat work with implants, and I was very taken. And we were already working with patients with ECOG. And that was a logical next step. I've done a lot of neuroimaging research, looking at brain functions, and I was getting a little bit tired of a lot of hand waving with fMRI, and I wanted to put my money where my mouth is and see if it's really true with ECOG and neurostimulation. And this was a perfect next step to use the knowledge to create brain-computer interfaces. My supervisor when I was a PhD student, he's a solid neuroscientist. He just retired last year with a very clean and rigid approach to hypothesis testing and how you should deal with difficulties in science. Anything that will stay around, whether it's a theory or a technology that is further developed and that actually helps people. Most of what I do is really ultimately geared towards achieving something that's useful for people who need it. So whether it's a mental disorder or a neurological deficit. Well, motor control is a little bit narrow approach. I think anything that allows you to control your environment, whether it's through a computer or through machines or anything. I think at first level, what I hope to see in my career is something for severely paralyzed patients. I think that would be the major achievement. We're not even there, so the next step is a little bit hypothetical. And then in the long run, I think the people who will benefit most is people with stroke. I think we're all going to grow older, we're all going to demand a, graceful old age. And we want to make the best even after a stroke of how we function. And anything that will help us with there, either restoration or replacement, or that will be the ultimate bigger goal for the next 50 years or so. After that, I don't know. I'm not too much into augmentation or enhancement of healthy function. I don't think it's going to happen very, very soon with implants. Yes, I think I was hoping from this conference that we would get an idea of where they complement each other. And I think it's pretty obvious that they will both be viable at some point. Maybe not commercially, but in terms of need and use, they will be viable. And it will really depend on the personality of the user, whether he wants to take an implant and get some performance, or whether he doesn't and he wants to have something external. I think the primary reason was to bring people together from different disciplines. It sounds like like a cliche, but my experience is that a lot of people in the BCI are from an engineering or an ICT background, math and computation, or from a very clinical background, or from neuroscience, and they all have a different language, and they all see a different horizon, so they see different problems as the major problem, and they're blind to other problems that are not part of their field, which probably are big problems. And I wanted to bring everything together to for young people to get a perspective of what state of affairs is. I think we have a very nice range of speakers who represent the state of the art in the fields that are all associated with BCI. And to give the speakers also, and those that are in the field, a little bit better perspective on how the different fields impact on each other. So it makes you think about it. It may not change your science, but it will make you think, and it will open up your thoughts about problems you had never considered before. And then you might come up with better solutions because you come from a different angle. So that's the idea, and then we're going to do this every 2 or 3 years to keep track. It has a focus on intracranial BCI because that's where most of the promise is, because it's really much younger than the EEG based. Definitely. as long as we have funding and we're in the field and I'm not, you know, in a corner teaching students, we'll do this every 2 or 3 years. And I think there's a lot of changes that we're going to look at for the next 2 or 3 meetings at least. Yeah. The bottleneck for non-invasive BCI at this point is the EEG measurements and the quality of the measurements and the issues with fitting the electrodes on a daily basis and the expertise involved and the irritation to the skin, the simple things. There's a lot of development of applications, the software, the training schemes, the decoding schemes, and that's all kind of maxing out, in my opinion. And either you focus on, not either, I think the focus really should be on the measurements, and if that, someone should really put a lot of effort into figuring out whether you can get better measurements with easier electrodes. And that's one, but it certainly has an intrinsic limit to the quality of the signals because of the skull. You know, my personal idea is that Europe really should start waking up and pick up on the intracranial BCI field, because it's really lagging behind the United States and probably China anywhere soon. So we're not going to be in the field, which might not be important, but it's a little bit silly to waste the how do you call it, the power, the brain power that we have in Europe in terms of neuroscience, to waste that and not make it applicable, put it to use for making applications. This is not a thing that you can encourage by, you know, improving the power of lobbying groups, or because it all boils down to funding in the end. And you need to develop things in an academic setting or a semi-academic setting to get beyond a certain point where companies can start thinking of putting their resources into making it commercially viable. So that's really the stage that we're at. I think one might say, well, you need to improve public awareness or public acceptance of implantable BCIs. Again, it's my little niche. But I think new generations are quite open to the idea of having something implanted if it has a purpose for them. So I don't think that's a big issue. It's really a matter of getting to the first evidence that it works. And evidence that a BCI works, means that you fit it on the patient, on or in the patient, and you send them home and it works at home without the engineers milling around it to make it work. That would be the big step. So. It's one of the most fragmented fields that I've been in. I've been in cognitive neuroscience, or still am, and in psychiatry. This is really a field that is so splintered. There's so many little disciplines that are separate. And I think anything that will create a common vocabulary, that would be a big improvement already. Which means that, you know, you could come up with standards, criteria. So, you know, and I know there's been a couple of efforts, but that would be something that evolves as the field will evolve, and the first hype has calmed down a little bit. I think what the EU has done, or the States the same, they fund consortia, and they tend to be very multidisciplinary, and I think that's an important way to go. Otherwise, I think someone suggested maybe there should be dedicated courses in BCI, training courses, master training perhaps even, bridging biomedical engineering, psychology, medicine and math, and that would probably be a very good idea. That would start creating people with a common knowledge base, and that would make communication a little bit easier, I think. And then otherwise, maybe something like a BCI community. I mean, you suggested maybe it should be a time or a BCI society where people feel associated. It will be quite a challenge to appeal to all the different disciplines, and like I said, they don't always recognize each other's problems. it's bigger than a common goal. It was really conceived to give a strong impulse to every type of research that is associated with brain-computer interface, which is literally the connection between brain tissue and electronics, which is stimulation and recording and everything. They didn't have too much intracranial invasive, and that was, I guess, the part that I represent. So my achievement, or my goal in that, is to come up with basic knowledge about what kind of electrodes to use and how to use them, what kind of signal, the best chances for success when you do an implantable BCI based on non-invasive electrodes. For the bigger scheme of things, I think the best achievement would be ideally to come up with something that you could very readily translate to a clinical application. And that would, I think that goes for any BCI development. You can develop further and make things more and more sophisticated, but you have to be prepared to spend energy on making it applicable for people who can use it or who need it. And that partly will be in gaming, which is more of a commercial application, and hopefully in patients. That would be the big step. I think ultimately it will be both reading and writing. Okay. I mean, there's no way around it. You're going to create another field after that. It makes a lot of sense ultimately to combine things, even deep brain stimulation, any interaction that influences how the brain works, which automatically includes the read-only systems, because they do influence the brain indirectly. So ultimately I think it will go there. I think for the clarity and of the goals of a community, I think for now the BCI, it helps to only refer to reading systems. But that might change fairly soon when you get enhanced BCI, where you feedback sensory information or something like that. There tends to be a little bit of disappointed undertone to the research, and funding is, everybody's complaining about funding and everything, but I don't see a difference with other fields. I give an example. Schizophrenia research has been going on for 110 years now or so. We haven't solved the problem. I mean, clearly they get medication, but the biggest advance in medication was in the 60s. But still, people are very hopeful that they're going to solve it soon, and that people have done that for 110 years. So that should be the case here also. I think there's a great promise in the BCI field, and there will be a lot of things that are done, that are written up, that people don't agree with, whether it's overstating things or trying to convince people of a wrong direction. I think it's normal for fields. I think it's just it just happens to all fields of research, and this is not going to go away. BCI is going to be in our face because people really do expect to get this kind of enhancement ultimately. So, and it's because we can do it, we will do it. So.